Welcome to the monthly Consumer Issues Program hosted by Cornell Cooperative Extension of Tompkins County. On the second Thursday of each month, we're joined by New York State Assistant Attorney General Michael Danaher, who makes a presentation on a topic of consumer interest. Today, he'll provide us with an update on scams targeting senior citizens. After his presentation, Mr. Danaher will answer questions that viewers have submitted to CCE Tompkins in the Zoom chat box. This presentation also will be available on the CCE Tompkins YouTube channel and will be broadcast next month on Mondays on Public Access Channel 15. Thank you for joining us today. And now here is New York State Assistant Attorney General Michael Danaher with today's program.
I'm Mike Danaher, Assistant Attorney General with the New York State Attorney General's office. My office is in Binghamton, and we cover the Tompkins County area. And we're here to talk at our usual monthly consumer issue program about different types of scams and frauds that are out there. We're going to talk about today frauds and scams that are affecting seniors or targeting seniors. The scam artists out there aren't always targeting a particular demographic group, but they're throwing out all types of scams out there that appears that in some instances that seniors may fall victim to more than others. And there are a few scams that seem to be directed right at seniors. And what our purpose here today is to just let you know what's going on out there so that when you see something, you go, wow, I heard about that. Maybe that's something that I have to be very careful about. Scams are out there. There are tons of them. They're happening in all different ways, happening to all different people, and some of them are very good. Some would even be able to convince a cynic that it might be a valuable type thing to get involved in. But we have to be very good consumers. We have to protect ourselves. We have to protect our friends and family and make sure that they don't fall victim to them. In this day and age where we're in the middle of a pandemic, hopefully not the middle of it, hopefully more toward the end of it, that scams have become even more prevalent. I think some of that is our fault in the sense that we're forced to participate by internet now. We don't have as much face-to-face contact as we had in the past, although we're hungering to get there. And as a result, we may have let our guard down and might fall victim to these frauds and scams that are out there. Interesting point. I was just looking up some information, and it turns out that finally, last year, 2020, the online contact by frauds have surpassed the telephone contacts by fraud. So you can see the scam artists have even gone into the new tech realm, and they're starting to perpetrate their scams online more so than by telephone. In other words, the initial contacts are being made now more online than they have on telephones. Maybe it's finally that we were able to get the point across that when somebody calls you up on the phone and say, hey, you just won a sweepstakes, that more of us are more apt to hang up the phone. We're not replying to those types of solicitations as much. And we'll see that the scam artists have morphed over into using online. So we're getting contacted by emails, by advertisements that are over the internet. We're getting text messages now on our cell phones more than when we're getting on the actual telephone calls. So be aware, they're out there. They're happening all the time. We're seeing them. I've often talked about how scam artists evolve, and that what they'll do is they'll take what's happening more recently and exploit those events that are happening more recently, and attempting to get us to be involved in these types of scams. And we think, well, you know, this is the thing that's really happening now. It must be that they're really contacting me about this event that occurred. And then use us to further their scam. One area that scams have been out there targeting seniors are in Social Security. People are being contacted by telephone, I've received those telephone calls, that call with that electronic voice that says that this is the Social Security Administration, and to notify you that your Social Security account has been compromised, or that your Social Security account is going to be closed unless you contact us immediately. Those are scams. The Social Security Administration is not going to be calling you, telling you that your Social Security account is being closed down. Don't respond to those. Don't engage with people who may contact you. Don't call people back from the to the number that's given. Don't click on anything online when you get an email that says that your Social Security number has been compromised and you're not going to get your Social Security check this month. Anything like that, you should look up the number for Social Security or an email address for Social Security yourself. Don't rely on what the email or the telephone call provided you with. Look it up yourself, contact the local Social Security Administration and inquire of them. That's the more likely chance that you are not going to be a victim of fraud in doing that. Another area where scams are prevalent, or another topic that scams are prevalent in, is in the use of Medicare. Medicare frauds are occurring all the time. What do they use those for? The usual area that they use those for is to get your personal identification information or identity theft. Identity theft is the #1 financial fraud that is occurring out there. It's someone who's taking our personal identification information, which could be Social Security numbers, names, addresses, anything that's personal to us. Mother's maiden name might be an identifier for us. In the olden days with Medicare, it used to be that your Social Security number was attached to the Medicare card, so that was your Medicare number. And that was changed a number of years ago. So the number on your Medicare card is not your Social Security number anymore, but the number that is on your Medicare card is personal to you. You do not want to give out that number to anyone else. And just because someone has that number doesn't mean that they're a representative of Medicare or one of your medical providers. Understand that. There are different ways that people try to get that information. It could have been a hack of a medical provider software that could have yielded that Medicare number, so that if somebody calls you and say, well, I have your Medicare number, it's this number. Don't be responding to them. Don't give them any additional information. Don't do anything. I would suggest that you contact Medicare if that happens, because somebody may have access to your personal information and you want to stop it immediately. Another area is counterfeit prescription medications. People are receiving emails and with the high cost of prescriptions, and whether or not a senior is covered for that particular medicine, and it might be costly to them if it's not. They get emails or contacted saying, hey, you can get these prescription drugs at really low rates. You think, wow, that's great. It's a lot less expensive than I have to pay at the local drugstore. You have to be very careful, because it could be out-of-date medications, expired medications that scam artists got a hold of. It could be foreign medication that looks like the medication that you are prescribed. You really need to stick with your local pharmacies to get your prescription medicines. That way you can be much more comfortable in knowing that what you're getting is what you're supposed to be taking, and not getting an ineffective drug, or worse, that one that will cause you harm. You know, we also don't want to be aging. We all want to stay young forever. And one of the scams that the scam artists have jumped on are anti-aging products. You know, these emails on these websites say, oh, makes you look or feel 20 years younger, you really have to be careful about those sorts of things. I would not be taking any medications that were not prescribed or recommended by a physician, your physician. Don't rely on somebody else for those sorts of things. Also, what's happening to seniors and types of scams that they could be subject to are funeral, what is grouped in the funeral category can be a whole number of things. It could be one where you're getting ripped off on funeral services. Two, it might be, and this is a little more subtle, but somebody can be scouring obituaries to see who has passed away and who their relatives are. And then they may contact those relatives and start saying that your deceased relative owed me all kinds of money and I need you to pay this. And I need you, like the spouse, the surviving spouse, you need to pay this bill for your deceased spouse, or we're going to come and arrest you or anything like that. Don't fall victim to those sorts of things. They're scams. They've been out there for lots of years. Don't fall victim to them. Like I mentioned before, the number one fraud that's out there, and it comes to us in many different ways, is identity theft. It could be contacted by telephone, contacted by internet, contacted in person to steal our identities: names, address, phone numbers, social security numbers, credit card numbers, bank account numbers. Your driver's license number is personal to you. Mother's maiden name. It could be your pet's first name. Anything that's personal to you, scam artists want to get a hold of. The one thing that we can do to protect ourselves is to not give out personal information, all those things that we just talked about, to somebody that you don't know. Usually they steal our identities with the attempt to, for financial gain, get loans in our name, get bank account information so they can invade bank accounts, withdraw money from accounts, those sorts of things. We have to be very careful about our personal information. A larger and larger percentage of frauds that are reported each year are identity theft frauds. It's happening more and more. It can be from the phone. Like I said, it's increasingly online. And it's the statistics are showing that the number of instances of identity theft are actually for younger people. They fall victim. And I think a lot of that can be that they're much more comfortable with the use of the internet and non-face-to-face contact than those who are seniors, although I fall in that category now myself. The number of instances are greater for younger people. However, the median loss, which means the loss that's in the middle, not the average, but the number of losses, dollar amounts above and the dollar amounts below, the median number of losses is 3 times, the median amount of losses is 3 times greater for seniors than it is for the younger people. So the younger people may fall victim more frequently, but it costs them a heck of a lot less money than for the seniors who, when they get victimized in identity theft, end up paying a considerable more amount of money. So never give out personal information to someone you don't know. Shred any needless papers that have identification information on it. As a matter of practice, I shred anything that has any of my financial information, like credit card statements. After I pay the statement, I shred the bill. Bank statements, doctors' bills, things like that might have any personal information for me, I shred. So destroy that. One important area, and I know that seniors really fall victim to this more than anybody else, is the use of PINs and passwords. So when you're online, you need a password to buy something. I'll tell you now, I've done more recently, it's been great, but I've done more recently is I get all my library books by ebook now online. I'm a member of the New York City Library. I live 4 hours away. I'm still a member of the New York City library system and 2 of my local library systems here in the Southern Tier region. And I go on, I actually can order a library book from a library through your devices, a Kindle or a Kindle app. You can have the book delivered directly. I did it last night, as a matter of fact. I had just finished the book that I was on. I went on to the one of the library systems and I found a book that I wanted to read. And I said I wanted the Kindle version. I opened my Kindle and turned on the Wi-Fi, and like that, all of a sudden the book was sitting right there on my Kindle. So we're becoming much more comfortable using those things, but a lot of times we need pins and passwords to have access to that. Like my library account, I need to have a password to a library card. It's virtual, but it's a library card. Same thing with Amazon or any other purchasing that we make. We have to have pins and passwords to get there. One of our big problems is banking as well. People are becoming more comfortable banking online. I do essentially all my banking online. I do periodically go to the bank to deposit checks, although I could just take out my phone and take a picture of it and have it automatically deposited into my account. But usually I'll go to the bank for that. But people are doing this all online now. And what happens is that we have to be very careful about the pins and passwords we use. And the best thing that I can tell you is, this is very difficult to tell to a senior because they just don't want to hear it, because it'll never happen to me. Right? Do not reuse passwords. If you have a password for your bank account, do not use that password for anything else. Don't use it for your Amazon account. Don't use it to log on to your library. Don't use it for anything but that purpose. Don't share passwords among the different places you visit online. Second of all, do not share your password with anyone. I suggest that you write it down and keep it in a safe place, the same place that you might keep your will or your bank information, a very safe place, so that if something should happen and people need to get access to your account, family members, let's say that you become incapacitated, have a health emergency or something, and people need access to your bank account, you can keep it in your records to where only your representative, family member or something knows that they can go there. Safe deposit box even. They can go and get it, and then they would be able to have access to it. But do not reuse and do not give those out to people. The other thing, and very important, probably the most important thing, is use robust passwords. What the experts are recommending is that you use phrases as passwords, not just a word, especially not just a word that can be looked up in the dictionary. Don't use your telephone number. Don't use anything that can be associated with you. What you should do is use a passphrase, not a phrase that you found from a book or a common phrase, 7 years ago. Nothing that can be traced to anything that's popular. Make up your own phrase. Then what I would suggest that you do is, in addition to that phrase, something that you remember, but in addition to that phrase, change letters or numbers out and insert symbols. One thing you might use is if your phrase included an A, you'd use the at sign, the A with a circle around it. Or for an L, you might use an exclamation point or a number 1, or anything like that. The more that you can mix it up, use a phrase and it has spaces, and the space is actually considered to be a letter or a number. It's a space in there. And so you have a space of, let's say, 4 words, and then in those words you have in your own mind that H's you're going to change to question marks or some other system that you have. Then you'll have a robust password that can't be cracked by anyone if they were able to get their hands on it. And again, use a different one for everything that you have. And I know you roll your eyes up into the back of your head and said, oh my goodness, how am I ever going to remember those? And what I say to you is, write them down, keep them in a very safe place, secure space that nobody else would know where it is. I have a list, and you can imagine I have just in my office, I have a ton of passwords. But on my personal stuff and all the different websites and places that I go, I have them written down in a very safe place, and that's how I'm able to remember them. And when I change them, I cross out the one that I had and I put in the new one. That's another thing that you can also do to protect yourself is change them frequently. I know that can be a pain, but that's the one that's most robust. We're becoming more and more internet people. Everything's starting to be online now, which is very convenient. I do have to agree. It's very convenient. I can access my medical records because my medical providers it's all kept in a central spot where I can just log in. I can see when my next appointments are with the providers in the healthcare system. I can see the results of my tests that I had. All that, it's great. But I'll tell you, the password that I have for that is not the same password that I use to get into my bank account. Two different things. That way, you're at least that creates a firewall, which is, even though something got hacked, they're limited because they can't use that at some other site. It's blocked because you changed your password. So make sure to do that. Another thing that we need to do that will help us in being proactive about our identity is to periodically, at least once a year, go on to the credit reporting site, annualcreditreport.com, and check your credit report. Make sure there's nothing on there that is not yours, that you don't recognize or anything, because that's the time to try to take care of it right when it comes up. Be very careful. There's another group of scams out there in addition to identity theft. There's a whole group of scams out there that I lump into the category of imposter scams. They're fake. They're fake people. They're imposters. One is the typical grandparent scam. I'm sure that many of you heard about that, but I'll just explain it for those who may not have. The grandparent scam is where a grandparent gets a telephone call. Grandma, Grandpa, this is your favorite son-in-law, your favorite grandson. And you say, well, Tom? Yeah, it's Tom. Tom, yeah, I'm with some guys. They got into trouble. They ended up doing something stupid. I didn't do it, Grandma. I didn't do it, but I got arrested. And you have to send me money because I have to post bail. We have many elderly people who are sending out money in response to that grandparent scam. It happens all the time. I've had grandparents relay to me, boy, it sounded just like Tom. Or the person had information about Tom. That could very well be because Tom got hacked and they got personal information about him, or they knew him. It could be somebody that knew Tom, met Tom somewhere. And then they're contacting you to try to get you to send money. Do not fall victim to it, no matter how much it sounds like Tom. Do not send money. The purported grandchild has been known to say, don't tell my parents. My parents will be furious they found out about this, Grandma. Please don't tell them. Call your son or daughter and say, Tom called me. It's always also been relayed to me by grandparents that they got that call and they called their son or daughter. And Tom's sitting right over here playing video games. He's not anywhere else. So don't fall victim to the grandparents. Another imposter scam is the IRS scam. I know that most of you, I can bet that most of you received the call. I have received the call. This is the IRS, and that you haven't paid and you're going to be arrested unless you contact us or that you pay money. IRS is not calling you to get you to pay something that you might owe. They don't operate that way. They're not going to contact you that way. And so if you receive a call like that, it's an imposter. They are not doing that. Another one, unfortunately, is happening is what is titled romance scams. I don't know why there's maybe falling. I don't know why they seem to fall more victim to those than those who are younger. However, I think that in the demographic group of seniors, some may be lonely. Maybe they did lose a spouse. As we age, people die, and unfortunately, and the spouse, long-term married spouse, is lonely, and starts to either gets contacted by somebody by phone, or it's happening a lot by internet, social media, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat. I don't know anything about Snapchat, but there's more and more and more social groups that people can become aware of, which are great. I mean, I'm on Facebook. I don't post much of anything. I usually just look, and I see things about high school classmates of mine that I haven't seen in 40 years. And it's really kind of cool. See what they're doing, contacted by them, and strike up a conversation. And it's almost like, and then what happens in the romance scams is that then all of a sudden they're contacting each other by telephone, and they're starting to get to know each other. And the person's in another country or something and just can't wait to come and visit you, just really wants to see you, but really can't, because I've heard all kinds of stories of explanations. One off the top of my head was that they were the sweetheart was taking care of their elderly parents, and the only way that he can come and visit is if he had the money to pay a professional caregiver to come in and take care of his parents while he's away. And all of a sudden the sweetheart's saying, oh, well, I can send you the money. And they're sending the money. We have had people contact us who have complained, not about the sweetheart. And by the way, the sweetheart at that point in time is the fiance. The fiance, the victim sends the fiance money, and then the fiance says, I just never got the money. And what will happen is that the victim will contact our office and complain about their bank or Western Union or some type of money transfer system, complaining, I bought those cash cards at the local department store, and I sent those cash cards to my fiance who was going to use them to come here, and he said that they were no longer valid. Well, he's a scam artist. The money got stolen, and he's just reporting back saying the money never got here. The gift cards, the cash cards never got here. And then the victim is so caught up in the fact that she's a fiance now that he would never do that to me. That she contacts our office complaining about the money distribution system, that the cash card system, rather than who the real person is. She has been so blinded by what's going on that she doesn't realize that she's been a victim of a scam. So that's happening all the time. These online dating romance scams are happening more and more. People are starting to date that way. They're starting to meet people that way. But I guess the way that I could encourage you is, do not send any money to someone that you haven't personally been dating for any length of time. If it's somebody you met over the internet, and although you talk to them on the phone, you never have personally met them, you don't know them, you haven't gotten to know them personally, physically, face to face, do not send money. Don't give out personal information to those people as well. Another big one that's imposter scam that's happening now, and it's happening to seniors as well as younger people, but younger people may be more savvy about this, is computer technical service scams, where you get contacted by Microsoft. We've detected a problem with your computer, and that you're going to have all kinds of problem with it, but we can fix it for you. Just go to your computer and let me, type in this and this and this and this. And what ends up happening is you give access to your computer to someone remotely who you don't know. It's not Microsoft. Microsoft is not sitting out there monitoring each of our computers, waiting for a scam or to hit, or spyware or malware or viruses to hit, and then calling us or sending us an email saying, oh, you've been compromised. They don't do it that way. If that should happen, and one, if you have fallen victim to that, unplug the computer and take it down to your local reputable computer store to have them clean it out. Clean out any viruses, malware, that sort of thing that may be embedded onto your computer. Because once they have access, they can do things from your computer and they can take information off your computer. For example, if you are logging into your bank account from your computer, you have to type in your password, they are going to infiltrate your computer and have access to, it's called a keylogger. They can actually see what keys are being touched when you are entering your password. So they can get a hold of your password. Make sure that you do not respond to those sorts of things. These computer technical calls that you're receiving are not valid calls. They're scams. Do not respond to them. You may also get an imposter scam of someone who's claiming they're affiliated to a particular charity and asks you to donate money. Do not do it. You can simply say to them, I don't donate over the telephone or over the computer. If you want to send me personal information to the physical mail, U.S. Postal Service, I'd be glad to review it, but I'm not willing at this time to make a donation. Another big area identified for senior scams, targeted scams, are sweepstakes and lotteries. Congratulations, you won, either by email or telephone. Somebody's calling you, congratulations, you just won oodles of money, or you're a grand finalist. You're grand finalist with 105 million other grand finalists that are they may send fancy publications saying that you won. They may send you an email from purportedly the armored car company that wants to deliver the money to you. Letters purportedly from a bank or your bank asking where you want the money to be sent. They'll wire the funds to you. So you give them wiring information for your account. Don't do any of that. Those are the start of scams and frauds. They could end up having your bank account cleared out and subject you to all kinds of hassles, if nothing else. Other types of scams, charitable solicitations, going to talk a little bit about it a second ago, whereby somebody's calling you up and asking you to donate. Don't fall victim to that. There's now out there, through the use of the internet, it's being used for all types of purposes, some valid, some fraudulent, and the difficult thing is telling the difference between the two. But there are now these things out there called crowdfunding sources, where the crowd gets together and can fund things as a crowd. There are many sites out there, GoFundMe.com, Kickstarter, Indiegogo. There's a whole bunch of them out there trying to raise money. And again, some could be legitimate. There are legitimate fundraising out there. You probably hear about them, that somebody had an accident and they need money for medical bills, and they started a GoFundMe site to raise money for the family. That's fine. I don't have any problem with it. The problem I have is probably from our side, which is we have to investigate what is going on here. Investigate who is the fundraiser. There should be a fundraiser attached to one of those things. Do you know this fundraiser? Is he or she a friend of yours? Do you know them? Is he or she actually a family member? Do some investigation of who it is that's raising these funds. Research the creator of the fund. Is the project realistic? Are they looking to raise, a couple of $1,000s for tens of thousands of dollars in medical bills and things? Or are they trying to raise unlimited amounts of money? Well, if they are, make sure you know who's handling these funds and what it's going to be used for, and be comfortable that the money you're donating is going to be used for the purpose for which you want to donate it. The most important thing is don't let your emotions get the best of you. These events can be very sad, very, very sad situations. I have donated to those crowdfunding because I know who the creator of it was, and I knew the person who was tragically injured, and I wanted to help defray the expenses for that person. And I knew that those people that were involved in this thing were all legit, but only in that case. I don't just drop money into a GoFundMe fundraiser for somebody that I don't know. So just be aware that it's out there. Make sure you think and look into it and do what we've always talked about here in our sessions at Cornell Cooperative Extension, which is be a good consumer as it relates to that. Investment scams also, people trying to raise money. What a great time to be talking about it, because as we tape this, we're just getting through the whole Robinhood fundraising, investment of companies that in the traditional market sense were not worth what they are. I mean, in traditional investments, people invest in businesses, stock, of companies that they expect that are doing well or are growing, and they have a balance sheet and an income statement, and their revenues going up or expected to go up over a period of time, or it's bonds, which are just loans that have been given to a company, and the company paying back the loans with interest, and that we're getting the interest back on the bonds that we invested in. Those, the solid companies that we expect that they'll pay back on time, or that their business is steady and growing, and we expect that either dividends will be paid out to us, or that the value of the stock will grow. But in this particular case, what happened was, and I don't have any problem with it, by the way, I'll explain why. GameStop, it's been the headlines of the paper, GameStop, AMC, a few others, that what happened was, and I'm not going to get into a lot of technical investment stuff, but what happened is that individual investors, rather than big investment houses, individuals, you, me, through social media and Reddit and other things, it got this momentum where people are saying, let's buy this, let's buy this. Now, part of the reason for that was that there were the professional investors, the pros, were doing a thing called shorting the stock, meaning in essence, they were betting against the stock. Their bet was such that they would make money if the stock went down. So they were betting on the stock going down. So these individual investors said, these big money makers, they're making a ton on GameStop. GameStop is, for those of you who don't know, it's a retail store. It's a retail store that sells video games. Yeah, they give you go in, you buy the video CD or whatever, and you buy that sort of stuff. They may have done DVDs and things like that, but they weren't doing well because a lot of stuff is online online. You didn't have to go into a retail store. And really the business was not doing fantastic. But a couple of things came together in addition to this group of individual investors saying, hey, if these pros are betting against the company, let's drive the price up, and they'll lose money on this thing. It's us individuals. We're gonna hammer those pros out there. And again, it's a lot more technical than that, but that's generally what it was. So all of a sudden, and it's that whole crowd mentality. Once the crowd jumps in, everybody's in. GameStop stock was valued very low, say under $10 a share. And because everybody was piling in, because of the law of supply and demand, and as a stock increases in momentum, the price goes up. The price went up to hundreds and hundreds of dollars a share. Now I'm sitting back looking at this thing saying, this can't last. There's no fundamentals of the business that would say that this stock was worth this much. It's just a gamble. And sure enough, what happened was that it got into, and I don't remember the number, but I vaguely hear something in my head. It was like $450, maybe even more a share for someone who may have bought it at 20. And it ballooned up over a very short period of time. Now, granted, the institutional investors that were referred to as shorting the stock, betting against it, got hammered. They did get hammered. And they ended up having to go in and buy stock as the price was going up to cover the short position that they were in. And all these people who were going in, and they were all saying, jumping on, saying, yes, let's just keep driving. We're going to make a ton of money. We're going to make a ton of money. But that sort of thing that has no fundamental foundation is going to crash. It's going to crash. The momentum can only continue going. It's not the same, but it's almost like a pyramid scheme that it has to collapse on itself unless you keep feeding it. And if it doesn't get fed, it's going to go. And what happened is price got high, people sold, and then again, as fast as it was going up, it went down. And as a result, I feel for those individuals that may have gotten in at $250 a share, thinking, wow, it's going to grow. And they just thought thinking that it kept going. And all of a sudden, it's now, I don't even know what it's at now. It's in the double-digit figures now, I think, from the last time I heard. I haven't paid much attention lately. But it may have dropped down to like 80, which is still better if you got in at 20. So you say, hey, still not bad. But what if you didn't have it, but you dug into your savings to pay $250 a share, and now it's 80? You just lost all kinds of money. And I could see that was going to happen. Now, I don't have a problem with it because I don't have a problem with it to the extent of those who got in, individuals who got in, and they wanted to do something to the institutional investors. Fine. I have no problem with it. As long as they knew and understood what they were getting into and what could potentially have happened. If that was the case, hey, we have our own free will. Get in, get involved. If you made a ton of money, congratulations. If you lost money, shame on you. But the thing that I don't want consumers saying is, I got ripped off. I got misled. I didn't know that this was going to happen. We need to be good consumers to say, the potential for this thing is that it could crash. I could make a ton of money, and I'm willing to take the risk. If I was willing to take the risk and I lost money, it's shame on me, not shame on them. If it was a fraud and and there's been frauds like that, they have their own name, refer to them as pump and dumps. What they do is they contact you. They say, hey, I'm going to get you into the bottom floor. I'm going to get you on GameStop. It's going to go up to $450. This is the reason why it's going to go to $450. I recommend that you buy this thing. And people go and say, oh, it's going to go up. This guy knows what he's talking about. He put the money in it as it's going up. They put it in. I bought, the person can say, I bought it at $20. It's now at $250. It's going to go way through the roof. You should buy this. The fundamentals are great. I said, okay. Here's the $250. And all of a sudden, the guy that got in early, he sold. He said, I sold, made money. And then all of a sudden, you, innocent consumer, your $250 is now worth $20. That's where I have the problem. But for just the way this worked out, individuals got together. They can't get together. Can't collude to try the price up, but they just chose to invest in this. I don't have any problem with it, but we have to be very careful about these investment type scams, pump and dumps. Home improvement scams were, oh goodness, I hope we get into the spring soon. Maybe those of you that may be watching this on tape, you'll have watched it and the birds are chirping and the last snow piles are melting, but right now it's darn cold out and we're getting snow. It seems like more this year than we have in a really, really, really long time. Can't wait till it's over, but there'll soon be a day when the home improvements need to be taken care of. And so be very careful about home improvement scams. Get estimates of reputable contractors, people that you know, who can either give you a reference of somebody that they used that did a really good job, or that you've used before and you trust them. Don't be just, hey, cheapest one. This one's $1,000 cheaper than the other one to rebuild my back deck. Well, you got to think about that for a minute and say, why are they $1,000 cheaper? Maybe there's a reason for that. So get estimates, make a good informed decision, and you won't fall victim to it. I probably have gone way longer than anybody wants to listen to me talk, but I'm going to throw it out there to any questions that maybe came through the chat. Sandy, do you have anything?
I don't see any direct questions. A couple of comments about other people that have lost funds. If anybody has any questions, could you perhaps go ahead and enter them in the chat now, and we'll go ahead and ask Mike while he's here online with us.
It's great to see all of you out there. Please join us in the future of we have these sessions, and we're hoping, Sandy, right, we're going to be back together again sometime before I retire.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. We hope that we all get to meet in person again. It's nice seeing everybody online, but it would be nice to see people in person. I'm not seeing any questions, Mike, okay. So I think we'll go ahead and close this. Thanks, Mike, and thanks to all of those who joined us today for this presentation. Mr. Danaher will be back with us on Thursday, March 11th at 11 a.m. with an overview of the ins and outs of insurances. You can sign up to get the Zoom link on our website at ccetompkins.org/events. Thanks again for joining us, and thank you, Mike, for the presentation.
Thank you, Sandy, and thank you all for joining. Hopefully we'll see you next month.